Thank you, Tim. That's right. We've got two heavy hitters about to go at it. Again, somebody in chat was like, two of the best five players of all time going to play each other. I'm sold. It's like, yep, that's what we've got this round. We saw that pop up on the matchups yesterday when they were announced. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this one the whole time, said.
You and me both, Marshall. I mean, obviously, it's great to watch all of these players play in the Rivals League as they're looking to make their way to the MPL and watching the MPL tomorrow. But as things stand, if you take out the Rivals and the MPL aspect of things, you're just watching two of the very best to ever sleeve up a Magic card, either virtually or otherwise. So this should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, these two players did work with each other as well on this deck list. They're on the same testing team for it. And that's why you see the exact same main deck. They did make a couple of tweaks to the sideboard different from each other, but really we're talking about a couple of cards different from the 75. So Dimir Rogues, two players that were hoping to face down against the Yorion decks. Primarily, that's what this deck was designed to beat. The mirror is the mirror. And Luis actually did end up playing against three Yorion decks today, swept them 3-0. So that little part went well, but now he's got to play the mirror against one of the goats. And, you never know which way it's going to go when you're playing a mirror.
Yeah, it's interesting because you really don't know which way it's going to go when you're playing a mirror, as you mentioned, and how well tested are these players in the mirror. Presumably, they built this build of the deck with the mirror in mind. I think that's why you're seeing the Shark Typhoons as opposed to the access to Luris. So I don't think the build of this deck is accidental by them in any means. You mentioned that Luis has broomed through the Urian decks. I think they've also built their deck with beating that strategy in mind as well, which does show, Marshall, that as good as those Urian decks can be, they are beatable.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we're going to be taking the view of Kai's game. So you see we've pulled the top part of the screen down so that you can see the view from Kai Budde. I know it looks a little bit weird compared to our normal one, but Luis's screen looked just a little too blurry here. So we're going to switch to this mode just so that we can have a good clear view of what's going on the battlefield. That is Luis's hand down on the bottom part of the screen still that you can see.
Yeah, we'll have to navigate this in a bit of an interesting way, but we'll do the best we can, of course.
Yeah, basically we're just watching it from Kai's perspective, face up here. And so far it looks like both players end up with Soaring Thought Thieves on the battlefield, although Kai did have two of them for a short bit. He's got a Cling to Dust. I think that they run one of those in the main deck.
Two actually, and
Is
that's
it
one of
two?
the things. That's one of the things actually a little surprising to me because Clinging to the Dust feels like this, obviously a good card, and it does a nice job of controlling your graveyard and controlling key cards in your opponent's graveyard, ideally. But I don't know how good it is in multiples, but feeling as though two is the correct number. Look, I defer to these two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got two in the main, two in the board, as it turns out. Very important card for the mirror, no doubt about it. Not only can the creatures come back, they also can manage the size of their own graveyard to perhaps mess around with cards like Into the Story for their opponent or even Drown in the Loch, something like that.
Yep, and again, that's kind of what's interesting about this mirror match is you're seeing Soaring Thought Thieves kind of coming across here. And Marshall, I mentioned this a couple of times. I mean, it's not the most damage in the world, and both of these decks do play a lot of removals. So, and you do have the ability to control your graveyard with Escape a little bit. So, the games generally trend towards just being longer because of that.
As you can see, Luis is now the one with the two Soaring Thought Thieves on the battlefield, as Kai has to now try to manage what's going on there. He does have two copies of Shark Typhoon that he could use as blockers.
Yeah, and you have to imagine, even though Luis's hand is pretty weak right now, it's a Cling to Dust and Into the Story, a Castle Lockvein, and a Temple of Deceit. You have to imagine that he knows that Shark Typhoon is something that can work itself into the equation because, again, they work together, same deck, all that jazz. But it looks like these 3/3s are still pretty comfortable coming on in here.
Yeah, the very awkward tap land there for Kai, as it would have been a much different world if he could have played one of the Shark Typhoons as a cycled 3/3, which could potentially block and trade off for one of these Soaring Thought Thieves. Instead, a 2/2 wouldn't really get the job done unless he wanted to tag it up with the Soaring Thought Thieves, decides just to leave up Didn't Say Please, and then can have the Shark or the Cling to Dust as a backup plan. And it looks like it's going to be a Cling to Dust here.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Luis with the Into the story, potentially ready to pop off.
That looks good. No, not the best we've ever seen. A couple of lands and just an essence scatter.
Yeah,
But
looks like it.
hey, I mean, 4 cards is 4 cards, right?
That's right. Yeah, and that means that you're that much closer to the good stuff that's underneath there as well. So kind of they call it velocity, right? The idea of kind of like getting through your library to get to the things that you need. And sometimes it doesn't look great to draw the 4 lands or 3 lands in a counter, but that does actually churn you through and get you closer to the cards that are really good. Are we going to see it?
All
Yeah,
right.
we're going to see it. We're
Yep.
going to
So
see it again.
I actually think as I've watched these games continue to unfold, I'm actually starting to lean towards hard casting and resolving Shark Typhoon is lights out in this matchup.
It is
That's
feeling
actually
like that, isn't it?
it feels like that's the game plan. Like cycling, it's gonna come up in plenty of spots, and it's the versatility of the card, which is what makes it so great. But if we're talking about earlier this year, Marshall, in the spring and in the summer, it was cycle Shark Typhoon, not cast it. In this matchup, it seems way more like, hey, it's cast Shark Typhoon, do whatever you want, I untap, and then this thing's over.
It's funny because when you say versatility, like I think, yeah, you could cycle it for 0 up to like 7 or 8, right? But you can also cast the dang thing. And the best feeling is when you have one and then you cast another one because it triggers the first one, and then even if it doesn't resolve, you get your 6/6 shark.
Yep. Now, Kai's in a bit of an interesting situation here because he has another Shark Typhoon that you mentioned that he could cast. He also has got this copy of Into the Story on the cheap. You're going to get your Shark no matter what, and it's just kind of like, what do I care about? What am I scared of at this
Right.
in this particular situation? Because Luis got a grip full of cards and he's not doing anything.
Right. I mean, the crazy part is at the end of the story, Shark's bigger than the Shark Typhoon shark. So yeah, you're getting a huge old shark one way or the other here.
Mm-hmm. But Kai's at 4.
Right. And that is going to lead him to pass the turn back. It looks like he's going to go for a cling to dust here. If there's a creature floating around, that could bump him up to 7.
There doesn't look like there
He
is.
also may be able, I don't know how many cards he can get out of his own yard. Is there a possibility on shrinking down the Soaring Thought Thieves from Luis? Feels like they've attacked enough times that that's not in the cards. Yeah, there's still 3/3. So,
Mm-hmm.
and he's at 4, but he has access to at least an end of the story. Oof, this is close.
It's actually really, really close because Luis's hand is really good. He's got 2 Drowned locks.
That's right. Drown Unlock, one of the key cards in any of the matchups that this deck faces, is it's able to leverage that card better than any deck we've seen before. Here comes everything into the red zone from Luis. 3 different 3/3 flyers all attacking in.
I'm curious if Kai. Well, I think you're supposed to do this right now, which is just you cast Into the Story. You hope that it resolves. It looks like it's not going to. You're still going to get your Shark token. Yeah, because Luis just really can't. I don't think he can afford to let it resolve. You could make the argument of you let it resolve and you kill the Shark token, but what I think
Well,
we're going to see is kind of the same thing.
it does seem like a strong argument given that he had 2 removal spells and there's 2 blockers right now. He could have used the other. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So lethal's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I guess if the Luis lets Into the Story resolve, 7/7 Shark resolves, and then you just go drown the lock, get through
Right.
2 attacks. So
So
I don't
GG.
know. I don't. Well, it's easy to say that it looks, I guess, kind of bad. And yeah, he just kind of rolled his eyes a little bit. You see him in the bottom screen. Maybe he thinks he just made a mistake there. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's exactly what's going on here.
this is huge. Jeez,
Yeah,
what
because
an
there was a window there, but because there's a good argument for 4 cards because that's devastating. But you would let your opponent have 4 cards if they lost that turn, as those cards end up not being relevant anymore. I saw Louis shake his head again. I think he's kicking himself here for that.
I think you're right. I think that he may have realized a bit of a misstep there, which is something we're not used to see to him, you know, doing anything resembling a misstep. Now he's going to try to resolve Shark Typhoon, and that ain't going to happen.
No. But now we get to see Kai perhaps take care of.
He's out of here.
Wow, yeah.
He knows.
So you can see Kai kind of smile there, and Luis is unhappy with himself. He's shaking his head down on the bottom part of the screen. He does not like the way that he handled that sequence.
Yeah, and it's always something that's really unfamiliar to me because Luis is top 5 all time. Obviously, we can always have a ranking conversation as we'd like, and same thing can be said of Kai. So whenever I see something that kind of stands out to me as like I think he may have just made a mistake, I'm always kind of second and I guess third or triple guessing myself. It's like, well, maybe I'm missing something. And in that situation, Marshall, as you mentioned, letting your opponent draw 4 cards is never a good idea.
Right.
But if your opponent draws 4 cards and you still win the game that turn, then there's a decision to be made there. Now, the one card I think that Kai could have drawn is if you let Into the Story resolve, and then you say, I'm going to kill 2 of your creatures, Kai could have drawn, I think, the only thing his out was Cling to Dust.
Right, that could change the math, right?
Right, because that can make another blocker, because Bloodchief's Thirst is a sorcery. He only had 1 mana available, and then Thieves Guild Enforcer doesn't have flying or reach.
Mm-hmm.
So Kai would have to draw his other copy of Cling to Dust at that point to make a 1/1 to chump, not even to trade. So
Right.
I think a little bit of a mistake there.
Yeah, it's tough because, I think that like you could make that argument, right? So it makes the play not insane. But I think that if you made that argument to Luis, he would say, right, okay, but I'm going to lose to what's on the board, perhaps, right? Which is, by the way, what happened, right? He countered the spell, no cards were drawn, but then Luis just lost to the resolved Shark Typhoon plus a few spells being cast, a timely removal spell, etc. And so I think that that's probably how that conversation would go if you talk to Luis. Again, there's almost always reasons to do one thing or over the other, but based on Luis's reactions, I mean, you don't see him react like that very often. But I mean, come on, like the thing is that at some point we just start assuming that players don't make mistakes anymore. But as fans of the game, etc. But you and I know we've been covering the game for a long time. We've been playing the game for a long time. But there is nobody that doesn't make mistakes. Everybody does, right?
Yeah, I mean, Magic is just too hard.
It's just too hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Luis is going to have to shake that one off and see how it goes here. It looks like Kai's got Duress to kick things off. He sees Into the Story, Maze Mind Tome, and a Shark Typhoon. I wouldn't be surprised to see him take that Shark Typhoon, Cedric, based on what you said before, that, a lot of times this matchup just comes down to that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Shark Typhoon is a card that has been dominant in these mirrors for the players that do have them. We saw the Duress end up taking a Maze Mind Tome, which, that card was trying to really kind of keep the hand together and bridge into the later game. So that makes some sense to me as well.
Yeah, that does too. That's what you'll usually see is somebody will either take the most powerful option.
Well, it looks like we lost audio with Marshall, so I'm sure he'll be back in just a moment. But in the meantime, we're going to see a Thieves Guild Enforcer come on down here. It's going to trigger, so 2 cards are headed to the graveyard. Luis is trying to stock up Kai's graveyard, of course, to turn on that copy of Into the Story. But Luis's hand right now is pretty weak with just an Into the Story, that Pathway, and then a Shark Typhoon, whereas Kai's got a much better hand with an Into the Story himself, a Cling to Dust, an Agadeem's Awakening that gives him some versatility on if he wants that to be a land or not, and then a Shark Typhoon of his own right now. So we'll work our way through these early stages of this game and see where we are headed here, because it looks like Kai might be eyeing up that Cling to Dust. Now he is actually going to cast it. And he's going to select Into the Story. Looks like of his own to get rid of. And him targeting himself, of course, allows him to manage his graveyard a little bit. Looks like going to be an island. And not too much going on here. Though it doesn't look like, at least just yet, Kai's life total's underneath all that much duress.
I think I'm back, Cedric.
Hey, he's back.
Sorry about that. I have made some really amazing points while I was gone.
And I believe you.
Put it that way.
I believe you.
Probably my best stuff of the whole weekend right there. What did I miss? Anything good? Looks like a similar position where Luis just has the two attackers, but Kai's kind of managing his graveyard here.
That's really about it, yeah.
Okay.
And you see now Luis's Into the Story is costing 4, while Kai's is costing 7 at this stage. So looks like we're going to be doing a little clinging. and a little exiling of cards in his graveyard.
Yeah, we've seen that time and time again end up being really important. Just the ability to exile cards from your own graveyard, which is not something you'd normally put a lot of importance on in Magic, but it really is the type of thing that can force the player to make plays they don't want to make at certain times, or even just completely take plays off the table. Particularly Into the Story is vulnerable to this, as it's part of the cost for Kling. So if they have it, they can just do this, pay the cost, and then you can't respond, and you end up with Into the Story stuck in your hand.
Mm-hmm. And definitely an important card to manage in a matchup like this.
Right. It is in many ways the game breaker, and it's only 4 mana, right? I mean, that's the key thing is that they can often play a spell or have a counter backup and then play that in the same exact turn. It can be really devastating. By the way, Luis is just getting his smash on here. Look at this. Everything pumped up and an Into the Story to follow up. And this one looks like a rout here.
Yeah, that's a pretty sick turn there from Luis. Multiple copies of Thieves Guild Enforcer, Soaring Thought Thief growing the squad, Little Baby Shark getting some work done now too. And now Luis, his hand is what it is, but his battlefield, he's very, very far ahead here. So the idea of, resolve Shark Typhoon, play the game that way, like we saw in game number 1 here from Kai, doesn't look like that's going to be able to come to fruition. And that's ignoring the fact that we're not even on turn 6 yet, but
Right.
he's just being outclassed in the battlefield.
Yeah, absolutely. Kai has access to 5 lands here and is looking to see if he can possibly survive. You see the Brazen Borrower could be part of the equation, but let's see, bounce a Enforcer, block a thing, take 5. I guess you're still alive. It's about the most he can do here is just petty theft away a Thieves Guild Enforcer and then play Brazen Borrower to block a Soaring Thought Thief.
Yeah, and fall down to
And
1.
go to 1? Yeah,
Yeah.
not a great position here for Kai. He found the win in game number 1, but Luis has had a very potent draw this time and is kind of running him over. I mean, Kai's in a position where if any part of this goes wrong, he loses. He's going to take the slightly safer route and cycle the Shark Typhoon. This can't be countered by, I guess, Essence Scatter is the card he gets to do. He also gets to be up a life here. So instead of falling down to 1, he's actually at 3. Oh, did he get auto tapped? Is that what happened?
I'm not sure. I think he's all right. Yeah, so we're going. Yeah, now he's just dead. I'm not sure what Kai. So Kai by cycling the Shark Typhoon, making a 1/1, blocking a Thieves Guild Enforcer. That's a 4/2. I'm not sure what his best draw step is there. Maybe, and ultimately it doesn't matter because he drew, conceded. And now we move on to the third and final one.
That's right. We're going to get a game 3 between our 2 titans of the game, Luis Scott-Vargas and Kai Budde. Split a game each out of the first 2, and now they're going to consult sideboards again, though. As we mentioned before, these players did work together before the tournament, so they have the same main deck with a very similar sideboard to each other as well. And we're going to see who's going to come away. Now, one thing of note here as well, Cedric, is that Luis is sitting at 4-1 coming in, where Kai is at 2-3. So Luis has had a better day coming in, is looking to finish as strong as possible, trying to pick up that 5th victory here. Kai's looking to scrap it back to a 3-3 to end his day.
Yep.
Big difference between the 2 players. But as we mentioned before, I'll mention again here for anybody tuning in, we are watching round robin here. This is the rivals playing against each other today. Tomorrow it'll be MPL players, and they're also playing round robin. And that's something new for Magic. I'm sure there's been tournaments ran like that before, but the vast majority of them have been Swiss pairings where you play somebody that has the same record or as close as they can get to the same record that you have. And that's not what we have here. They're just playing everybody else. So you just run through it and play everybody else. But what that means is your records can be way different. So you can have a 2-3 versus a 4-1 here, and they just have to keep scrapping it out.
Yeah, the records can definitely vary wildly, but the quality of gameplay I think is going to be high no matter what, both
Yeah.
today and tomorrow. And we get the benefit of closing out on a really, really unique and fun matchup between two of the game's very best. So should be fun here in game number three. And we got Kai in the tank on how he wants to sideboard. And again, what I think is really interesting about this matchup is play versus draw. You're probably going to sideboard different. How you just like to play this style of deck, you're going to sideboard differently. And then when you were playing against someone who you worked with, and it's open deck lists, you maybe want to try to take them by surprise with some things. So you're really getting into the weeds of the sideboarding here.
All right, well, let's get underway here. In game number 3 between Kai Budde and Luis Scott-Vargas, Kai's going to be on the play this time. He's got a Saurian Thought Thief to kick things off. He also has Drown in the Lock, though that's not active just yet. But the Saurian Thought Thief will certainly have something to say about that as it goes on the stack.
Yeah, Kai's hand is one that would like to get a lot of cards in Luis's graveyard, of course. Missile Dispute might be a pretty good draw step here in the early game. But, the goal here, of course, is to get some cards into this graveyard to turn on these copies of Into the Story.
That's right. So first things first, the Saurian Thought Thief is going to get in, mill a couple of cards. And now we're going to see Cling to Dust here. That's going to resolve.
Yep.
And the turn goes back over to Luis. He was just looking to cycle that. Cling to Dust plays a tap land. A little bit awkward there. Castle Lockthwain coming in tapped for him rather than untapped.
Looks like we're going to battle over this one. I think Kai is saying, I really, really would like to keep this Soaring Thought Thief. Thank you very much.
Definitely a card worth protecting, especially when you take a look at what Kai's got going on in hand with the 2 copies of Into the Story. He can't get to 7 cards in the opposing graveyard quickly enough.
Yeah.
That seems to be his game plan at this point, is to throw Into the Story on the stack once he's able to for the 4 mana, protect it with Dispute, and then try to ride the wave of those cards to victory.
That looks to be the plan. All right, let's cling again.
Luis is continuing to cycle through these Cling to Dust and trying to keep his graveyard count as low as possible. It looks like it's at 5, which is kind of the magic number here, given that the Soaring Thought Thief could easily make that 7.
Yeah, that Thieves Guild Enforcer might be a really, really big draw too, though. That can build 2 more cards, and then you could have a Thieves Guild Enforcer Into the Story turn. And now Into the Story right now costs 4.
Mm-hmm. It costs 4. The Rogues aren't on just yet. 1 more card will be needed for that. Here comes Thieves Guild Enforcer for Luis. This is on Kai's end step.
Seems like a decent enough time to let Into the Story rip when you have Dispute back up. And I think
looks like he's going to go for
upkeep. Yeah.
Yeah. That way he can kind of leverage this into a tempo spell where if Luis wants to go for a counter here, he can still win the counter fight, and he's forcing Luis to tap his lands on his turn. That almost guarantees that Kai has the opportunity to cast an Into the Story on his turn if he'd like. Oh, that was interesting. So Luis actually went for Drown in the Lock just to kill the Soaring Thought Thief. He may not have had enough in the graveyard, as Luis hasn't really been able to get much going to get his Drown in the Locks to full capacity just yet.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Luis is in some serious trouble here. It doesn't look like there are any lands. Not the ideal draw for him. And
that was brutal too.
Yeah, you saw that Thieves Guild Enforcer. That was a 3/2 into a 1/1, and now we're going to resolve this. And we are.
That is going to be game. Yeah, and I think Kai knows that this one is over, and so does Luis Scott-Vargas. He's going to pack it in. Kai Budde wins this clash. He is going to improve to 3-3 and knock Luis down to still a respectable 4-2 on the day. Remember, the caliber of competition today is very, very high. They're playing against all the other rivals players. So, we're talking about some stiff competition throughout the course of the day, Cedric. But at the end of it, it's Luis at 4-2 and Kai at 3-3.
Man, it's a good day there for both players. Definitely a good day for Luis, of course. 4-2 would love to be 5-1 and end his day with a win. We all know that feeling playing the last round of a tournament. You prefer to end with a win as opposed to a loss. But the person that does end with a win there is Kai. So 3-3, I would say, kind of salvages the day, because 2-4, that's a big difference from 3-3, of course. And Luis, again, 5-1 would have been ideal. But 4-2 is not anything to be too upset about.
Yeah, and they can be happy that they hit the metagame that the way he wanted. At least from Luis's perspective, he ended up facing Yorion 3 times. They built the deck to have a good matchup against Yorion and still be playable to good against the rest of the field. And Luis went 3-0 against Yorion, ended up playing Dimir Rogues the other 3 times, went 1-2 there.
Sure. I mean, ultimately, what I'll say is I like their build of Dimir Rogues. I think it's a pretty unique and good build, and now we're starting to answer those kind of questions of Ruin Crab, yes or no, Lurish, yes or no. Shark Typhoon definitely looks good in the mirror. That we can say for sure.
Yes, it does. All right. Well, let's hear from Tim to set us up for the next round.
Thank you, Marshall. Yeah, love seeing those sharks in the air, but also it's tricky to figure out who you're meant to root for in those sorts of matches. As soon as I saw the White Cliffs of Dover on Kai's side for his islands, that was good enough for me, and they were able to get it done. We do have one more match available for us, though, before we close things out for the day. It's going to be some more rogues, and this time it is Frederico Bastos up against Bernardo Santos. More Dimir Rogues coming to you very, very shortly. Do not go anywhere. Closing out the day here on day 1 of our league weekend after these messages.
Hello and welcome to The Bold, the fastest way to get to know the most interesting people in Magic. Right now I'm joined by member of the MPL and part of Team CFB, Martin Yuza. Martin, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. Where can people find you online?
So you can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/MartinYuza, my name. Same on Twitter, also twitter.com/my name. And on Instagram, it is instagram.com/UzaMTG.
Awesome. We'll get straight into some questions. What is the best color of mana?
Blue.
Do you have a favorite format?
My favorite format is Booster Draft. It's the most fun. Every deck is different. Every draft is different.
What's the best draft format or draft set?
The best draft format is Time Spiral Block.
What's the best color combo?
Simic, blue-green.
Do you have a favorite tribe?
Elves.
What inspired you to start playing Magic?
I was in high school. All of my friends, or most of my friends in the class, were playing this interesting game, and I started watching them, asking questions, and eventually I got hooked. And yeah, now here I am.
And one last question: aggro or control?
Aggro.
All right. Thanks very much, Martin. Appreciate you talking to me.
No problem.
Friends, it seems appropriate that with Dimir Rogues being the most numerous deck in this first day of our Rivals metagame, that's the deck that we're going to see in our feature match area for this very last round of the day. We're going to have a chance to see Frederico Bastos against Bernardo Santos, both of these players having elected to go with the Dimir Rogues option. These two Spanish players, one at 2 and 3, one at 3 and 2. Big difference in terms of how long they've been playing, but slightly less difference in terms of what they've chosen to come with this weekend. Let's have a look at the first of these Dimir Rogue lists. Now, it's the first thing that I'm looking at every time I look at one of these rogues lists is how many creatures have we got? And here we've got the full 16 with the Merfolk Wind Rider and the Ruin Crab, excuse me, there available. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if you happen to spot in the sideboard on this one that this is where Larissa the Dream Den gets involved and means that in principle, these creatures just keep on coming back. And this version of Rogue, Cedric, has a lot more potential to go for a straightforward mill strategy, all until the point where the opponent has no cards left whatsoever.
Yeah, and when Marshall and I were covering Rogues to kick off round number 2, we did see milling work itself into the equation in a very meaningful way. Now, in the match we just watched between Kai and Luis, that was not the case. It can come up, and it's going to come up more often when Ruin Crab and these other Rogues enter the equation. So will it come up in this game, or will just regular damage be what kind of does one of these players in? We'll have the opportunity to find out.
Well, let's have a quick look at Bernardo Santos' list, see whether or not we've got, well, it looks like we have another one of these full mirrors. Not necessarily a big surprise, these two Spanish players potentially having worked together here on their lists. But yes, once again, we get a chance to see how a version of the Rogue Mirror goes. Last time round, Shark Typhoon was the most important card as it turned out in terms of the mirror. This time round, that one not a factor. Let's see if we can figure out what it's going to be this time around. We have the two players ready to go. Let's head down to our feature match area for the very last time today. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this first day of our league weekend. Zendikar rising the set. The format is standard. We've got Bernardo Santos, we've got Frederico Bastos ready alongside Marshall Sutcliffe and Cedric Phillips for this last match of the day.
Thank you, Tim. And welcome to another mirror match. This one is same colors as what we just saw, but different builds. As you can see straight away, there's different things going on in the opening hands here, particularly with the Merfolk Wind Robbers there. And add for Frederico, we'll see more creatures on the battlefield in this matchup.
We're definitely going to, and I think it's more likely that we see mill working itself into the equation in this matchup too. Now, I'm not going to say that one of these players is going to get milled out or the other is, but it's more of a consideration in these games as opposed to the last games, which were much more built around, I would say, Shark Typhoon more than anything else.
All right, here comes Thief's Guild Enforcer. And may as well throw another Rouge on the battlefield, the Wind Robber. So, boom, cards going to the graveyard quite quickly. And we'll see a similar line here, although look at it is. Crab cakes time, baby. Ruin Crab's about to hit the battlefield. And we could have a real mill fight between these two. With the Thieves Guild Enforcer to follow it up as well. And then the Merfolk Wind Robber. Wow. Yeah, the cards are going to be flowing into the graveyards very quickly on both sides here.
Yep. And with both players having access to Luris, you get into some unique game states of Luris bringing back Crab to be able to continue milling, or Luris bringing back Merfolk Wind Robber to continue drawing cards and cantripping. So I think these games are going to look a lot different than the last match that we just watched.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited. Are we going to see a mill race or a damage race, or
somewhere in between?
Yeah. Looks like the mill race is being put on hold here by players using their removal spells to take out opposing crabs. So that one really did become a nice crispy crab cake, but it's in the graveyard, unfortunately. So Thieves Guild Enforcer is the last bastion, though I will say when you have two of those, as we see here from Bernardo, that adds up really quickly too.
It does. It really, really does. Deck damage is a real thing.
Yes.
And we might be going the route. It reminds me for you older school players when there's infect and the normal damage involved, and it's like you're trying to thread with both. It's like, which way do I go? A little of this, a little of that, right? We got a little of regular damage taking place and a whole lot of mill taking place. So you're kind of covering both bases in a weird roundabout way.
You ever try to trifecta somebody?
Oh, what's that?
Well, you get them poisoned, you get them dead, and you mill them out all in the same game.
No,
yeah,
no. I've never been there.
That's a high level or high difficulty experiment to try in any Magic game. I don't care what format you're in, but if you can do it, very impressive.
That's reserved for the best of the best. That ain't me.
You're more about the one aspect. One of those three you've chosen to focus your career on a little harder.
Damage. It's that one.
Yeah. If you play against Cedric and you gain a life, he's like, good game. I brought this deck for 20.
Tough road to hoe.
No, not lately though. Not for you lately. You've been on the mono green. That thing can do well in excess of 20 damage quite easily.
This is true. As long as my creatures don't all die first. So looks. I mean, we're thinking. So I mean, this is one of those times too, right? Where it's like, okay, attack you for 6, put you down to 14. Your creatures are just 1/1s. Those wind robbers stink. And that I'm also deck damaging you. So
it's true. It really is. That was what, like 4 cards in the yard, 6 damage.
Yeah, it's good.
And by the way, look what's back on the menu, said.
What do we got?
The Ruin Crab. No, the Ruin Crab. Just saying.
Crispy crab cake.
I'm interested.
Ooh, no
you
spell.
ever done like delivery crab cake? That's not a thing, right? Like,
See, that's for whatever reason, it's got to be in the restaurant.
Yeah.
No,
Fresh.
I don't want one. I don't want one door dashed to me.
No. Okay. I'm not going to do that. I was considering it, but I wanted to run.
I could be. I mean, if you want to experiment,
no, I don't. I wanted to be told not to do it. Is what I really wanted.
No, I don't. Is awesome.
Here comes the 2 Thieves Guild enforcers. We may see the block and sack. We may see a double block. We may see a block and double sack. Anything could happen. Now we're going to see a Soaring Thought Thief hit the battlefield, and assuming that that's doing the pumps, that would mean a double block here, 1 for each, which turns out pretty well, although a Heartless Act on the Thought Thief could break up this party.
It could turn out bad.
It turned out bad.
It could turn out bad. I mean, the constellation, right, is, okay, well, at least I get 2 cards for my trouble, but I lose both of my creatures, and I'm still having some difficulty dealing with these 3/2s. We're going to play that Agadeem's Awakening, probably untapped, right, to represent Drown the Lock, sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Chat says getting crab cakes delivered is like getting sushi from the gas station.
I mean, I don't like that, but I do like a sushi from a Fred Meyer.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
It's actually just totally fine, which is surprising.
It is, yeah. If you need lunch, that is lunch.
Quick little pick me up.
But the gas station sushi probably not the best idea.
No.
It's got the little sticker that says packed on 4 days ago. Meanwhile, our players are deciding what to do here for this next play, and it looks like it's going to be Lurrus that is going to get countered by Drown in the Lock.
Now, Mystical Dispute's going to let a battle back, but
cancel that order. It does mean that Frederico doesn't get to do anything this turn, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the Lurrus. So everything's going to come into the red zone, a trade that Bernardo would be absolutely thrilled to make here. But of course, Frederico's not going to allow it. And it looks like we're going to see Merfolk Windrobber actually try to find an answer for Lurrus, and he does. Look at that Heartless Act off the top, Zed.
Insane draw. Now this turn it's Heartless, which is going to resolve, and it might just be land get Lurrus as opposed to Ruin Crab play the land. Yeah, and I like that. Yeah, let's get the Lurrus in the grip.
Not committed to the deck damage plan is Bernardo Santos. Instead, looking like I'd like to put lethal on the battlefield. I'd like to threaten lethal the next turn, right? Like get you down to 1 or maybe 4, and then play Lurrus, play a thing again. Really powerful sequences for next turn.
Yeah.
The Ruin Crab actually looks kind of bad here.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but like if you're going to say it, yeah, I mean, I'm not big on it.
Although, now that there's a Fabled Passage, could we see Lurrus get back the other crab, cast this crab, play Fabled Passage, crack it for 12 cards? I wonder how many are left.
All it took was Fabled Passage to totally redeem itself.
Do it. Oh. It's going to be another Soaring Thought Thief, it looks like. We don't know exactly how many cards there are for for Frederico. There's probably too many to get the job done here.
Yeah. But
and this isn't bad. This is almost.
That's what I was going to say. This is still because you're also still milling.
Right. It's almost as many cards as
you're getting 4 from playing that, and now you're getting with 2 more from the attack. Like, yeah, you're not doing bad here.
It's actually the same.
Yeah, 4.
Right?
Yeah, it's the exact same. But you're attacking for more damage. Again, you're threading the needle beautifully. And now you're gonna sack that to draw a card. That's a mistake because that's one less card I have to worry about.
That's right.
It's probably totally fine, but yeah, Federico's in horrible shape.
That's right. Federico has felt behind this entire time. Bernardo taking a little bit of time last turn to get Luris into hand, but it has paid off in a huge way. And there are actually only 12 cards left as well. So I don't see any way out here for Federico. I mean, if you use your resources to kill Luris, which is what's going to happen here, well, the board just kills you.
Yeah, and that's a tough part too, is because you have to start with Luris. You can't start with anything else. You got to start there, or otherwise Luris is going to bring it back. So, okay, you solved problem 1 of, I don't know, 6.
Right. Now we could see some blockers here, right? There's certainly cards available here for Federico to not die this turn. But boy, this is precarious to say the least. Ooh, Fabled Passage. That's good for another 6 cards. That's half of Federico's life. Excuse me, not life. Library.
That's 2 more on top of it. So down to 10. Mill
one for the
6. Yeah, so down to 9. Mill 6 down to 3. Draw step down to 2. If my math is good.
That's very sketchy. Oh, and look at that. Federico's like, seriously?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if there was any chance to come back, because I have to say that last turn was very productive for Federico. Didn't die and took care of 2 key threats. But now, what are you supposed to do with only a few cards left in your library? Now you have to kill literally every card on the other side of the battlefield.
So, I mean, Marshall, there's no effect damage here, but 2 cards in deck, 1 life.
It would count, right? Like an attack with a Soaring Thought Thief to mill you while also serving for lethal. That's 2 of the 3.
Yeah. And now, if you're Bernardo, let's think about this. Land, game over. Thought Thief attack, game over. If I draw a rogue that triggers Thieves Guild Enforcer, game over.
Show me a card in the deck that doesn't do those things or doesn't find those things, right?
Yeah. So basically, like the majority of your draw steps are good here, and removal is good too.
Yeah, I would say the vast majority are lethal. We may have a hard time like it has to be like, I don't know. Is there anything? I don't even know if there. And look at this. He actually was set to turn the corner with like another turn or something.
Well, let's see. What do we? So I think you drown in the lock the Thought Thief and hope your opponent just bricks.
Like you hope that they find, like Heartless Act.
Yeah, that's all you can do is just hope for Brick Mania. Well, whammy.
Not a brick,
but you tried. I can respect the attempt.
And that's all the cards. There is no library left for Federico Bastos, and it was that.
I did it.
Seriously, he did 0 cards in library plus a lethal attack. Wow, it's amazing.
Somebody clip that.
Oh,
We nailed it.
Wow. We asked for it and we got it, said. This is a good day.
Crab cakes 2 ways. Dead a la mode. Beautiful.
I love it.
Beautiful. I
I'll
like
take
that.
crab
Mill
cakes.
you, kill you. Oh, baby.
That was a nice one. Now, coming into the round, looks like Bernardo was 3-2, where Federico was 2-3. These 2 countrymen from Portugal going at it. Bernardo feels like he has more to win here. Just getting up to that 4-2 range puts you into that upper tier. But since we do play a round robin here, every single win's counting no matter what. So Federico's certainly going to scrap this out.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because on one side, again, you've got a player who 3-2 to 4-2 is like, okay, that's a really good day's work. Winning record against incredibly high level of competition. For Federico, it's like, man, I salvaged. I went 3-3. That's awesome. I can't wait to get back in there for the next weekend like this. So it's funny, a 6-round event where if you go 3-3, it's like, how good is that for me? It's like, it's really good. It's actually really good to go 3-3 in this. You should be really happy doing so.
Seriously.
And then 2 is like, that's even better. Because look, not a lot of people go 6-0 in this for obvious reasons. There's not a lot of 5-1s running around here either.
Right. Extremely difficult. This looks like a mulligan to 5 for Bernardo.
Yeah.
No, it looks like
Oh,
just 6. Okay, so that's a little better. What do you get rid of here?
I'm sending away Wind Robber because it's just the lowest power card.
Yeah. Uh-oh, Ruin Crab to kick things off, and I see another one in hand here for Federico as well. And it looks like Bernardo may need to do the same.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting decision, right? Because right now you're thinking, okay, so do I Fabled Passage and get a Swamp to be able to play Bloodchief's Thirst to take care of this Ruin Crab, even though I don't know about the second one? Or do I just play Island Ruin Crab and then I have Fabled Passage milieu 6? If I draw another Ruin Crab, it looks good. But I think you actually just want the black mana on 1 because you want to give yourself the option of Bloodchief's Thirst or playing Soaring Thought Thief on 2. Well, go time.
I love it. That's what you want to do.
Small thing, but I do like sacrificing the land now because in the off chance that all your swamps gets milled, which, yeah, I understand it's a very unlikely, but, don't open yourself up to that happening. Good attack. Show your strength with that crab. Respect.
By the way, Tim just messaged me, said that he recognized that he had said that both of these players were from Spain earlier, and he meant to say Portugal, and he wanted to say sorry to them. It was just a little brain fade from him there. It is getting kind of late where Tim's at. He's over in the UK, and we've got him staying at actually his place of business kind of late here, locked up in the office. But he said, whoops, he meant to say Portugal.
Gotcha.
These poor crabs, they just don't last very long.
Yeah, and that's what makes me always wonder about crab in a matchup like this, because there are going to be some games where like the double crab draws are relevant, and there's going to be some games where it's just kind of like big top deck, drew a crab.
Yeah, there's another one. I'm with you, Said, though, seriously, because in the games where it doesn't matter, you can simply ignore it, right? Mm-hmm. You just don't care about it. Like, you're flying over it. You don't have to spend removal, anything. And it's just like your opponent kind of ripped up a card, right? They're just like, here's a crab, but I'm going to be able to race that no problem. Therefore, it doesn't matter. And in the games where it does matter, well, it kind of dies to anything that you have, right? Like, if you need to kill it, it's not hard to do. And it's just a 1-for-1 trade, and it's fine. So I wonder as well. And when we do see 2 of them hit the battlefield, you can definitely see the opposing player kind of like, loosen up their collar a little bit, like, okay, I guess I better kill one of these because, you can get kind of turbo milled out if too many crabs are on the battlefield. But they do seem to have a very wide range of how good they are on a given board.
Yeah, it's a thing where you have to, I guess I would say, you have to determine how much you care kind of early, I guess. I'm not saying you can't pivot, but early on, kind of what's going on with the crab and everything else like that's kind of involved with that, because the milling aspect of this stuff in the mirror is very, very real. We just saw it in the last game, and we're starting to see it in this one. It's actually kind of interesting. For as long as you and I've been playing Magic, people have been trying to mill each other for a really long time. It started with control strategies, just the card Millstone, but when they printed a card like Archive Trap and more dedicated mill type cards, players have tried it and have mostly failed because the deck has just kind of come short power level wise. But these rogues have really pushed milling into a real thing.
Here comes the all-important Cling to Dust.
Yep.
Oh, but there's an end of the story in response from Federico. And
I
look
like
at that
Federico's.
hand now.
Yeah.
Goodness sakes, that's a
His
grip.
hand's really good. And now
Got
the mill plan for Federico looks really good now too, because he's got another Ruin Crab. He doesn't have a land, but also, with Luris in hand and then Call to Death Dweller to get back Luris or Ruin Crab, like the mill plan looks online this game.
Yeah, the really tough part there was the cling just wasn't enough to get the end of the story cheap canceled. So Frederico still got to just cast it, right? That's one of the big interactions that you're going for with the cling is to keep those end of the stories at bay, and it wasn't enough.
Yep.
Well, there's some respect. Probably the best interactive spell in standard, taking out a crab.
Yeah, drown the luck, countering a crab, and it feels incredibly temporary. But when the game looks like this, crab becomes a priority.
It does. And that's what we were talking about. You can ignore it when it's not, but when it is good or when it is affecting the game, when you're not able to apply pressure to your opponent, like in the situation Bernardo's in here, then you do have to use your resources on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now
this is nice.
Yeah, we're kind of like in counter everything mode, kind of.
Right. It looks like both players are, because Drown in the Lock is going to come out as well. Federico wants this Soaring Thought Thief on the battlefield, and he's going to force Bernardo to burn another spell. What Bernardo really wants to do is get this into the story on the stack and get those cards into hand. That does mean, though, that the Thought Thief is going to resolve.
Yep.
Oof, there's a Thieves Guild Enforcer, too.
It was 26 cards there for Bernardo when he hovered over.
Okay.
Looks like it's about to be a little bit less than that.
Yes, it is. A little bit awkward here for Federico. He's got the Luris of the Dream Den kind of ready to roll. Could even get back a crab, but there's no land drop to follow, it looks like.
Yeah, not yet.
Maybe we'll see Call of the Death Dweller do a thing. That could lead to some explosive stuff as well. Okay, there's Luris.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other options? Oh, there's a Thieves Guild Enforcer, so that would be good. Oh, it's going to be Ruin Crab, though.
Yeah, I like all of this. I do. Kill your Ruin Crab, play my own. Because now what you're doing, you're setting yourself up for, like, all your draw steps are good again, right? If I draw lands, that's fine. If you don't kill my Luris, which you obviously have to start with, then I'm going to get back Thieves Guild Enforcer or another crab. If you kill it, I don't really care because I do have Call of the Death Dweller. So rock in a hard place here for Bernardo. He doesn't fully know it yet, but he'll be finding out soon enough.
Right. Yeah, I think when the rock hits him in the face, he'll probably recognize that fact because, yeah, he just put Luris into his hand, but now he's completely tapped out. And look at this board for Federico. And all Bernardo can do is say, all right, hit me with your best shot, but I don't think he's going to like it when it happens.
No, I don't think he's going to like that proverbial rock to the face, as you mentioned.
Right. Now, it looks like still no land drop for the double crabs, though, so that's a little bit of good news for Bernardo. And it's another reason why you and I are questioning the crab a little bit. I mean, I'm not strictly anti-crab, but it definitely has its downsides.
Yeah, I mean, this game now we're looking at it as more of a damage game, but again, it works. It cuts both ways because if you kill the Soaring Thought Thieves, it's like, okay, well, if I start drawing lands, you're screwed because I'm milling 6 at a time, and now here goes 2 more. So
right,
yeah, the library's down to 11.
Okay, yeah. So it really is hitting from all angles, and that's in fact going to be it there. Federico Bastos is going to pick up the win right there and force a Game 3 decider between these two players. Ooh, this one's getting very, very intense for these two. You can sense it just, looking at their cameras and kind of seeing their expressions that there's a lot on the line for these two. They're both very much in the middle of the pack here, 2-3, 3-2 records. These rounds are really where, if you end up at 2-4 on the day, again, it's nothing shameful like that. That's perfectly within expectation playing against the level of play, but it's not what you hoped for coming in. You really were hoping for something better than that. If you can plot a 3-3, it's like, hey, I'm still alive. I'm still around. And for Bernardo, 4-2 is just downright good.
Totally agree. I mean, 4-2. If I were to play in this tournament,
Mhm.
right? And someone came up to me and just said, "Hey, I'll just tell you right now, you don't get to play, but you end the day at 4-2." Like,
Mhm.
dope.
Oh, you would take that.
Dope.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm 4-2. I am gonna go run some errands, go do anything else I have to play. And it's like, well, you could be 5-1 at 6-0. It's like, I'll take the 4-2. I'm out of here.
As the door shuts.
Yeah.
Cedric's gone. Pencil it in.
Yeah. So 4-2 is something to be very happy with if you get there. Got to win one more game to do it.
Looks like a mulligan here from both players to kick things off. No crabs in sight for either of them.
I mean, I say good enough and send back. It's either call or wind robber. I am just like the most anti-wind robber person probably of all time. So
is Bernardo.
It's
He's just 2 on the bottom of his library.
It is so low power. I really don't like it. It's not a critique on either player. It's a critique on the wind robber.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a low impact card overall, no doubt about it. All right, well, let's get underway here. That would be a difficult way to watch the game. Just both screens simultaneously. I kind of like it. But of note here, again, no crabs to kick things off, though there is a Thieves Guild Enforcer here for Federico, so a good start. And it looks like there's one for Bernardo as well. Okay, that's a pretty nice draw. A second Soaring Thought Thief. And Federico may be able to just get a real aggro draw going here. He really wants to have this on the battlefield now so that he gets the additional trigger when the Enforcer attacks. But he's really reluctant to just throw out a blue card on his own turn that taps him out. And you're going to see why in just a second. There it is.
Boom.
Mystical Dispute. Exactly what Federico did not want to see. But he clearly suspected it, but decided it was worth the risk. What's going to happen here? Nothing just yet. But a good turn lined up here for Santos as well. He could start his next turn with Thieves Guild Enforcer and Soaring Thought Thief if everything goes well.
Yep, and that's a really good way to kind of pivot this game in Santos's direction.
Mm-hmm. He also has the option to cast the Thieves Guild Enforcer, put another couple of cards into the yard. That would make it, I believe, 3 cards in yard for Federico, and that could turn on that Drown in the Lock for something if he needs it.
Also true.
Oh, there's a Ruin Crab as well. Hello.
Hello there, friend.
Okay, so here comes Thieves Guild Enforcer to mill the 2. Is this going to be a block? Is that what he's indicating here? It is.
That answers that. Okay. Before damage, this. Okay.
Is that enough? Will it get the Thieves Guild Enforcer up to the 3/2?
Well, we're going to find out. No.
Felt like not enough, but okay. Well, they're just going to.
You get your trigger, so that's the reason to do that.
You get your trigger. Okay,
yeah.
Sure. So even though it didn't quite get it to the glorious mode there, it did get it closer. And remember, there's Call of the Death Dweller in hand here for Bernardo, so he's clearly trying to set that up. And hey, look at that.
Yep. Set it up with the shields down entirely so that it resolves.
Right. Looks like he didn't hit anything additional there with the mills. Call of the Death Dweller. Usually you can just kind of get whatever you need, but it does look like he's going to be able to get back the two rogues that just died this turn.
Might as well.
Yeah. So there you go. And this is, of course, a nice, powerful turn as well. He's going to get the triggers here from the Thieves Guild Enforcer. And now everything's all growned up, and he gets to pass the turn back. So looking good here for Bernardo Santos, but now, was that just a pass the turn from Federico?
That was a very quick pass the turn. No land for Crab, no nothing. Here come the beatdowns.
No. Okay, well, he's got Soaring Thought Thief. He also has Heartless Act in his hand, though. He can only cast 1 spell this turn, and he decided for it to be Thief.
Mm-hmm.
So he could either soak up 2 damage from the other one, or he could try to trade.
Well, don't forget too. Heartless Access destroy target creature with no counters on it,
Mm-hmm.
and well, Call the Death Dweller does give those cards counters, unless I'm wrong. I'm
Oh,
pretty
you're
sure
right.
those are counters.
It gives him Death Touch and a Menace counter. You're right.
Uh-huh.
You are correct, sir.
So I guess you could remove the Death Touch counter or the Menace counter, but you're not going to get very far doing that.
So brutal. Uh-oh. Was there a did he forget about the Death Touch there, said? Because I think he actually did try to soak up the damage from the Soaring Thought Thief, but now his is in the graveyard.
I think you may be right.
Yikes. So an oversight there from Federico, perhaps, unless he's got some weird stuff going on here that I'm not seeing yet. That looks like it may have been a mistake where he would have preferred to just trade off. Oh, no, he couldn't either because of the Menace. So that was his only block, but it was not a great scenario. Like, he would have had to throw the crab in front as well. This one looks like it may have completely fallen apart here on Federico. Really, really tough situation that he finds himself in at this point.
Yeah, and I like pushing the advantage or drown the lock, just saying, hey, you don't get to kill my thing. I'm attacking you. Trigger. We see another Soaring Thought Thief here. The Soaring Thought Thief that's over there continues to be bad, right? Because it can't battle the 2/3. I guess it could block the other 4. Like, it could block the 4/2 that doesn't have a Menace counter, but this is going to get disputed, I think. And you just keep snowballing and running downhill. Your opponent has no cards in hand.
Right. Yeah, really tough for Federico. This draw did not come together well for him. He had a misstep there and no good options even with that. And, I'm going to say it, the crab has been horrible this game, right? Like, you turn that into a relevant spell of any, removal spell, another rogue, something else, and maybe we have a game here, but it just sat there and did effectively nothing all game. And Bernardo Santos is going to be 4-2 here, capping